Coming up on Over a Barrel.
Here in northeastern Illinois.
Yeah.
So that's why you're seeing, I mean, look at Wisconsin, even 352.
Over a Barrel starts right now. Welcome to Over a Barrel yet again, another edition right here, whenever you're watching us, whenever you're watching us. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, good morning. Hello, I'm Matt McLean, Patrick DeHaan here as well. Patrick, how you doing, sir?
Oh boy, Matt, you said good night. Hopefully people aren't falling asleep to this, but I could just imagine.
Anything's possible. I mean, today I kind of feel like I live in the Truman Show as it is anyway, so.
I feel like you're bringing the big energy to today's episode.
Listen, I did something great this week. I listened to Patrick DeHaan.
Oh boy.
I took his advice. I did something good, and I was very proud of myself because you know how we have these little price spikes and whatnot throughout the week and even sometimes, sometimes over the course of a week or two, gas suddenly just jolts up a whole bunch. You've got a specific name for it. It's happening more and more across the country. Well, me, Mr. Matt McLean, decided to fill up on the low streak instead of the high streak for once, and I got gas for $2.99 a gallon, and that same exact station 24 hours later was $3.30. So I'm like, okay, I saved money. When I save money, I'm happy. Just throwing it out there.
That's a pretty big savings, Matt.
It's a big spread, right?
Right. Way to go,
right?
Matt.
Big hand applause.
You pay with Gas Buddy card, all of it. It's always a great victory when you go to the gas station and, you layer on fuel rewards or some other loyalty program. You roll back the price and then you get the pay with Gas Buddy deal alerts. And you're just, before you know it, all of a sudden you're paying 35 cents a gallon. Those are the opportunities, Matt, where I really wish that my vehicle was like bone dry, completely on E, because it's like, oh, I need the gas cans. Let's fill up as much as we can, because you never know when you go down the road, it could be a lot more.
Yeah. And I even helped a motorist this week. She messaged me. She was concerned about driving. She was driving through multiple states. She doesn't do this on a regular basis.
There you go.
And I got an opportunity to remind her that inside Gas Buddy, you can plan your trip and figure out where the gas stations are, because she was concerned. She wanted, being a single woman, she wanted to make sure that she was driving in a safe manner and driving in an area where there were plenty of well-lit gas stations. And she was willing to do like a 3-hour detour to stay on main roads. I said, hold on. I may have a suggestion for you.
Boom.
How about you go inside the Gas Buddy app or the Gas Buddy website? Exactly. And put your trip in there, and it will tell you if there even are gas stations on your route and the prices and everything. And that saved her about 3 hours worth of extra driving, right? So yes, of course I'm in a good mood. I'm highly energetic.
By the way, let's introduce the tool that you're talking about for web. It's a little bit different on the app. If you're in the app, when you are searching for an area, you can basically put in your destination address in the app. So it's a little bit different in the app, but we have the trip cost calculator in the app as well. You can put in where you're going, and it'll show you all the gas stations along your route. This on the screen here, for those of us listening on Spotify, we are looking at the Gas Buddy trip cost calculator. GasBuddy.com/trip cost calculator is what we're looking at. Essentially, you put in your start and destination, Matt. Where are we going today? Let's, say we're going to a road trip, Sandusky, which is where Cedar Point is for those in the Midwest. Let's put in our vehicle here. Let's just hypothetically say we have a 2018 Ford, let's say Edge. Let's put in the 2.7 liter Edge Sport. All right. So for those not on the web, end of the tank size, I'm going to guess it's about 17 gallons. Let's take out all that, and regular gasoline. So if you're on the web, you put in all your information. We've got the start, we've got the destination, the vehicle type. Thankfully, this populates the mileage, the tank size. Let's calculate the trip. And then Gas Buddy does all the work for you, tells you exactly where to fill up. Look at that. And $3.46 in Elkhart, Indiana. That's nice and cheap. But on this single trip, $16 savings, which is what, 20% or so, because it's not even $100. So, Matt, great point out. The trip cost calculator on the web and in the app. great way to get started is saving money, which is really what we're all about. Although I
Hey,
would say, Cedar Point's a nice destination and it's not too far down the road.
right. Yeah, she was very appreciative. And so, yes, absolutely. These things make me happy. That's what gives me my fuel to be all,
Look what you
semi
did there.
chipper and whatnot, right?
I
It's
like what
helping
you did
people.
there. Big Friday energy. Well, for the rest of us,
Right.
by the way, Matt, look at this. Ohio is in this little pocket of red. Very red here in my home state, Illinois. One of the few cities, few states really outside of California. Wait a second. Wait a second. All right. Now I've got to look this up. Illinois
Yeah.
has got to be one of the, yeah, look at that. Yuck.
Uh,
Top four. So wow, that's pretty rare that Illinois cracks the top five, but we're still seeing impacts from the refinery outage here in northeastern
oh,
Illinois.
yeah.
So that's why you're seeing. I mean, look at Wisconsin, even 352. That's why this entire five-state region, Matt, is so expensive. And if we look here at the biggest movers here in the last week. Boom, there you go. All of these areas. Nebraska, I'm not really sure what's going on there. But yeah, look at Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio. Indiana, we're probably catching the wrong time. Indiana is up as well. But look at some of the other states. Kentucky down by you. It may be getting into some of these other regions. Florida, by the way, they saw a price cycle this week. We often talk about price cycles. They happen every 1 to 2 weeks. So
That's what I was referring to a couple of minutes ago because yeah, everything just changes. And that same exact station now, 3 days later, is back down to 304 a gallon. I
yeah,
don't I
all
don't
over the place.
understand. Yeah, it's like within a week, it had a 30 cent spread. It went from 302, 299 to 302, 299 is what I paid.
Yeah.
Then 24 hours later, that same exact station was 329.9. And now that same exact station is like 304, 303, somewhere in the neighborhood.
We call that the gas game.
It's awful.
Well, by the way, national average, I was going to quickly point something out here. National average is down now 16 cents from last year. Last year, this is right about the time, if memory serves, that a year ago, we saw refinery issues in the Corn Belt. If I go back to a year ago, let's see see, we're just in the midst of a huge surge last year. The Corn Belt, there were a bunch of refinery issues there. They basically didn't produce enough summer gasoline. And if you were in the Corn Belt a year ago, you were getting hosed. So what I was going to point out to you, Matt, here is that, you talk about inflation, it's improving. If we look at the biggest movers compared to a year ago, look at these big drops compared to last year. And the Corn Belt, well represented there, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Kansas. But look at the West Coast as well. Washington State down 66 cents a gallon, Oregon, Colorado. In fact, the only areas that are probably paying more than last year, what region's it going to be, Matt?
Probably Illinois, Michigan, and whatnot. Yeah,
There we
I
go.
was thinking
Michigan,
Wisconsin.
Illinois, Ohio. In fact, Wisconsin, Indiana. Wow. Even with Indiana's prices being up in the last week because of this refinery issue, they're still down 2 cents from last year. So exactly to your point, the areas that didn't have refinery issues a year ago that have refinery issues now are the only, look at that, Matt, only 4 states are seeing
That's
higher prices today than a year ago. So that's certainly wonderful news.
That is very, very impressive all the way around. I tell you, there's so much going on with regard to all of this. We've had a lot of things take place over the past week. I mean, we have the Olympics that are going on right now. I posted a fun question on my own Facebook feed last night because I'm like, I've got a dumb question. The opening ceremony, it's on Friday, et cetera, et cetera. Why are games being played before the opening ceremony? I knew basically what the answer was, but I wanted to see what I
Kind of
would
like
get.
the NCAA tournament, right? Before the tournament starts, you got the play-in tournament.
That's kind of basically what it was. And so there's so much going on. And we're just hopefully going to have fun over the next couple of weeks where maybe the world can collectively take a breathing sigh of relief and just focus on games. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
The gas
Yeah,
games, Matt. That's what I'm going to be looking at is
I
these ups
know.
and downs. By the way, for the Midwest, hopefully a little bit of relief is coming. We did see the wholesale price of gasoline in this 5-state region. The Great Lakes did see a nice drop in the wholesale price. Oh, look at that. Looking at the wholesale price now today, again, another good signal. Wow. Look at markets today, Matt. Oil prices down almost $2 a barrel, $76. Just a couple weeks ago, we were well over 80. Remember, 83 bucks a barrel. So now we're back down to 76. And talking about Olympic Games, talking about the games of Mother Nature here. Let's pull up this, see what Mother Nature is cooking us up right now. And
There's
yay.
nothing.
No
I
games
literally
happening
pulled
in
it
the
up myself.
Atlantic right now. All of them are in Europe, apparently at Paris.
Yep.
So
I literally looked it up almost at the same exact time as you, and I'm like, oh,
Bud's
that's good
struggling. So
news.
we have an Eastern Pacific storm. These do not really have any impact on gasoline prices. Although if Bud were to say swing north into California, there are a lot of refineries down in California, but that's it. The games are going to be happening in Paris and not hopefully at the pump. Hopefully continued lower prices. So
That's what we hope for, right?
I'm feeling a little optimistic. Maybe the USA can take gold in terms of the biggest decline at the pump here over the next week.
Yeah, so we've had, again, are you on the record at this point of saying that for now, I'm not going to hold you to it like 6 months from now because that would be crazy. But for now, inflation for the moment in energy prices and other aspects for the economy are looking like they are kind of getting better?
Well, they are. Look at a year ago, 367. Today we're at 352. So,
And this is a driving force for so much inflation that you see no matter what you are purchasing on a store shelf, no matter what you are purchasing online.
Chart, right? The diesel chart. We haven't even looked at that. This is diesel. And look what happened last year in wow. So very quickly, Matt, this CPI data, look at last year. We were what?
Consumer price index, by the way.
Eventually went up to 4.56 a gallon as we approach the fall. So we're going to fall off of that this year. We are not hopefully going to see this much of an increase. Now, keep in mind, last year, again, some of the refinery outages, this is what played into it here. This chart that you're seeing on your screen where prices spiked partially was due to the refinery situation in the Corn Belt. It was also due to trying to remember going into September, we probably had tight inventories. By the way, fall is when you tend to see diesel prices going up, Matt, because people are filling their home heating oil tanks, and home heating oil and diesel are essentially the same product. So you will start to see diesel going up in August. By the way, one thing we haven't talked about, I saw a couple counties in Florida. They're gearing up for back to school here in a couple of weeks. And when schools start to reopen, Matt, that means that families can't take those road trips. So usually, when things start to fall off, airlines, the second week in August is really when airlines start to see a big drop in travel. That's when we start to see gasoline demand really declining.
Okay. I have a question regarding airlines.
I was going to wait because I saw the finger go up.
All right. I've got a question for airlines. They are all saying that they are having record revenue, record passengers, which we all know is pretty much the case. But they are citing higher fuel costs as one of the contributing factors as to why they are struggling to make a profit. Is that factually accurate? I'm not going to sit there. I could insert airlines names, but it's not just one. It's multiple airlines all saying higher jet fuel is creating a problem in them trying to generate profit. In fact, their profit is much less than it was even a year or so ago. So I'm like, okay, let's fact check this for just a moment, since you've already got the trends and everything pulled up. Talk to us about whether or not there's some accuracy to that, or is it just kind of a mention on words as a way to, dare I say, raise prices?
Well, airlines have seen a big increase in a lot of their non-fuel related costs too. But look, I was going to quickly see if I could pull up the price of jet fuel here, the EIA's data. I'll try to zoom in here to last year.
Yeah, I'm just curious because I'm just like, okay, well, they're citing higher fuel prices. Yes, they are also citing and attributing.
There we go.
There we go.
So now this is Gulf Coast, but Gulf Coast is a big area. You think about United has a big hub in Houston, Chicago, San Francisco. So these prices do vary. But if you look, Matt, actually they're partially, correct that now their jet fuel prices, they did go up for last July, they started to go up. But if you look at the period that they just reported, look at this. The period they just reported on was the second quarter. And so during the second quarter last year, 211, 212, and look this year, 235. So yeah, there was a bit of an increase this year. The good news is, look at last year though, Matt. The third quarter last year is when jet fuel prices, as we're looking here, 282 back in late July last year. Right now, look at this, 237. So for the third quarter, I would expect that airlines, 3 months from now, are going to report a third quarter decline in year-over-year jet fuel prices. So what was ugly for the second quarter, or year-on-year increase, will revert to a year-on-year decrease for the third quarter. The other really interesting thing you mentioned about airlines is Delta specifically has been calling out on their earnings that people are avoiding going to Paris. And they are one of the largest carriers that had, they're a huge sponsor of the Olympics. So they actually had to trim capacity going to Paris. And they cited that in their earnings reports. And they specifically warned that right here, Matt, I don't know why the screen is gray here. That's interesting. There we go. Look at this. Delta revealed that it is expecting a loss in revenue due to the Paris as they are skipping out. So this is going to be interesting. And by the way, to your point, there's record revenue across the board for airlines, but higher labor costs. Yes. Delta, American United, all their pilots, all of them really lucrative contracts. And now, just in the last, I think last week, Matt, the flight attendants union with American Airlines is likely to ratify a new agreement. So labor costs have gone up significantly. So airlines are struggling right now. There's a lot of capacity, and they cited that some of this is the problem. But to your point, jet fuel prices this second quarter were above last year. The good news is, for those third quarter earnings for airlines, they should show a year-on-year decrease as they report for the third quarter ahead, unless they're really bad or they've hedged fuel. Keep in mind, you remember Southwest Airlines was really successful about a decade ago when it hedged fuel. Yep. So for those that don't know what fuel hedging is, it's basically the airlines pre-buying or agreeing to the future price of fuel. And when fuel costs explode, those hedges are basically a bet. They basically pre-bought at a lower price. Right. And so those hedges really do well. But a lot of airlines, because you have to prepay for those hedges, they're extremely cost prohibitive, because airlines generally don't have hundreds of millions of dollars sitting around. But some of the European airlines still partially hedge their fuel expenses, because fuel for airlines is probably one of the biggest expenses outside the jets and labor.
Speaking of Southwest making that announcement, from just as a little, I'll chase that rabbit for a minute, because as everyone knows, Southwest is open seating and has been for nearly 50 years, their entire existence. Even whenever they bought AirTran and other airlines that they merged into their own brand name, it all went open seating. Well, that's changing now, and they're citing higher jet fuel costs, and yes, higher labor costs as well. Which, I'll be honest with you, I kind of want a pilot that's paid well, because they're sort of like in charge of my life during that flight.
I want a pilot with a family, so he wants to go home, right?
Yeah. I want to have happy pilot. It's a good thing, right? I mean, you kind of want that in life. That's right. That's I have no complaints about that.
It was while we're on the airlines, it was really interesting. To your point, Matt, Southwest extra legroom. They are going to start flying red eyes. And they are done with open seating. But did you read the details? It's really interesting, because while that has set it apart, Southwest found me basically, is that the number one reason that people do not book them is because the lack of a seat assignment. That's you too?
Yeah.
I don't like the mad rush. I want to know I've got, a seat for my butt.
Exactly.
And the other thing is that 80% of their own customers don't like the mad rush. They participate in it. But yeah, so Southwest is going to fly overnights. If you've already seen, they've loaded some of those red-eye flights from LA to Baltimore into their system. So here we
Yep.
go. Southwest is becoming one of the big three now in, kind of evolving how it looks at this.
Yeah, the last time I flew Southwest was actually on my way out to see you in Denver last year, and it had been several years since I had been on Southwest for that exact reason. And if you can imagine loading up video production equipment, audio, our podcast equipment. I mean, we broadcast live last year from Denver. There's a lot there, but and the only reason why I was on Southwest was because the scheduling. It is the only flight that made sense to fly out and fly back from Denver, so I could visit with you in person and drive you
Beautiful.
crazy in person, because that's the
Well,
fun.
the other nice thing too is, while we're on the subject here, I'm going to share this. This is a travel hack, by the way. It's not Gas
Ooh,
Buddy, but anyone that uses Google Flights now, the other thing that's really nice, Matt, is that Southwest now loads their prices into Google Flights. And so
yep.
very quickly, if I'm going from Chicago to LA, oh, look at Spirit. What is this? Yeah. So, whole point being here is Google Flights will show you all of these really well. American at 255, United 257, Southwest. Yeah. See, and that's been my experience. The Southwest has been a little bit more expensive, but
You get free bags.
you do get free bags, and see that you get the no bag. American even includes bags with that fare. United does not. The interesting thing here is, though, Google Southwest is now participating with Google Flights. And they now, as you see here, they are now loading this into their system, where it used to say, go to southwestairlines.com. And it used to, take a little bit of time. So I'm just want to see if there's any stops here. No, it's nonstop. That's not bad. If you if you book it this far in advance. So travel hack, use Google Flights to book your air travel.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun. I'm telling you. We listen. Travel is travel, and it's fun to do that. You travel a lot. Lord knows I go through enough fuel to probably buy stock in something or another. I don't own any, but I probably ought to. Or at least have a big fuel tank in the backyard, so to speak, and fuel up there. I don't know, but I go through a lot of fuel. My bills are quite high with regard to that. So I am very price conscientious when it comes to, a few pennies per gallon start to add up for me. And that's the way a lot of business owners are, especially if there's a transportation aspect to their business. 5-10 cents a gallon suddenly adds up exponentially for business owners. But that's where the inflation comes from,
Yep.
because when you have to suddenly pay more as a business owner, you don't have that extra 30 cents per gallon to not have to raise your prices on the store shelf or whatever service you're offering, because it's just that's what I'm saying. This is one of the foundational things for inflation. Doesn't matter if it's a can of coffee or a packet of coffee. There's a fuel factor involved in that, because somehow, some way, that product or that service had to
100%.
get on the store shelf or the website or whatever. So
Yeah.
when gas prices come down, this is why it's so important. When gas prices come down, then those other prices can slowly fall back down as well, once the commodities that are in the warehouses and stuff that were transported there on the higher fuel prices kind of get spread out, and the new ones come in. Prices will eventually come back down. And that is where you get into this case point where you got Ben Bernanke and friends at every aspect saying, we're
Yeah.
going to try to do a soft landing. And everybody on both sides of the aisle are saying, I don't think that's possible, right? You got the ones that are going to say it's a hard landing, and you've got others that are going to say they're not going to get inflation under control. And quite honestly, they've done a pretty decent job, fingers crossed, for the moment, of getting things to a soft landing situation.
Exactly. And to your point, we continue to get closer and closer to this so-called soft landing. It looks like some of the data, if you saw, the interesting thing though, Matt, is that GDP numbers came out this week and they were much higher than expectations.
Yes, they were.
So, there's a lot of different things that the Fed is weighing, right, when they look at these numbers. And 2.8% GDP, I think, in the second quarter was much higher than the 2.1% expectation. So there's a lot of, kind of conflicting factors here on both sides. But to the point here, the good news is that energy, which is traditionally more volatile in terms of, what the contribution to the CPI calculation, the good news is that the year-on-year difference is going to start growing. As we just pointed out here, last year we were going into a time when we started to see some pretty major disruption in terms of refineries in the mid or the Corn Belt state. So if we do the biggest movers, actually, let's do a heat map. The biggest movers from a year ago, a lot of this is going to show up in, look at all these areas out west. And then look at where refineries are currently having an impact now. So the good
Yeah,
news,
good point.
the good news is that a lot of these year-on-year comparisons, and hopefully this Joliet refinery that we've been talking about here in, well, it's actually in Lake County. I look at that compared to last year is up 42 cents right in the epicenter. Most of this map should start to turn to green and blue because this refinery, by the way, has received power back again. ComEd, who is the utility, said that they received power. But the difficult thing about a refinery is you can't really do any damage assessments. You don't know if your unit is damaged until you get power back. So we're still kind of waiting to see. The good news, though, Matt, is that, as I mentioned, the contract for gasoline in the Great Lakes rolled over to the September contract, which didn't include as much of that reaction. Naturally speaking, when a refinery outage happens, the way that futures and spot markets work is they're focused on 1 month. The August contract is the one that saw a big surge in prices. And with that contract now rolling to September, there's less of that risk. So that could change, though. The September contract could come up in price, but at least for now, the signal is that the September contract for the Great Lakes is declining, which means the market views this situation as cooling off. But as those damage assessments come out, there have been some murmurs of potential damage at that refinery. So we'll this is kind of an open-end item yet. It looks like it's cooling off. But if Exxon or, market sources that work near, in and around that refinery tell us there's damage, there still could be some, reaction to that. But for now, looking at the national picture, this 351 should start to recede here. Oil prices are down, so a lot of good news here heading into the closing innings of the summer. The biggest question mark is, will Mother Nature cooperate?
Yeah, that is the big question. The National Hurricane Center still standing by their predictions. And I look at it like this. If their predictions are to come even remotely close to being true, the next couple of months will be extraordinarily active. We had some fearful moments, a month or so ago at the very beginning of hurricane season. It's like, holy moly, right out the gate, here we go. And then it got quiet, and it has stayed quiet. There's, without getting into a lot of technicality, that center of high pressure that suddenly just sort of developed there, which is kind of suppressing development, which is certainly good news if you don't want a hurricane. And so, it's something to keep an eye on over the next couple of months. And all we can do at this point is hope, for sure.
That's right. And as we close here, for some of our listeners and some of our audience, for those that aren't aware, there's an event that you and I are both going to be at.
Yes.
This is going to be more for potential participants in the C-store industry, fueling industry. There is an event going on in Washington, D.C. at the end of August. Well, hopefully there'll be no hurricanes, but if there are, we'll be talking about that. Connections Live is an event where you can interact with PDI Technologies. Their technology is in many C-stores. PDI also is the owner of the Gas Buddy brand. So there's a lot of cool things here. You and I are going to be doing a couple of live episodes again. This is in DC. Anyone can sign up to attend this. You can register. The link is on the website. But there's going to be a lot of really good educational sessions in Connections Live this year. I'm really looking forward to it. You and I have a session about a live. We're going to be talking about our regular weekly Over a Barrel episode.
Yeah.
Which is in here. Yeah, there it is. Industry leadership. We're going to have an Over a Barrel episode live from 11 to 12 a.m. That is going to be on, I believe, Monday, and a really interesting one then on Tuesday. With the election coming up, we are going to be sitting down and talking about the potential for what that looks like after the election. EVs, gasoline prices, and look at all these great educational sessions here. So if you are in the C-store industry, if you're a PDI customer, if you're an industry participant, sign up, check out Connections Live. It is August 25th through the 28th in Washington, D.C., and you can register on the PDItechnologies.com website. We'd love to see you there.
And we'll be more at sea level instead of a mile high in the sky, which was
That's right.
I never could get my breath. I tried so hard. For you folks in Denver, my hat is off to you. God bless you. That is very entertaining to me because I'm like I didn't know they sold cans of air there. Boy, if I had known, that would have been fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it though last year.
That was a
real.
lot of fun. So if you want to see us come out to Connections Live
Yeah.
in Washington, D.C., in actually a month from today, we'll be recording another podcast. And again, you can check out all the details on Connections Live at pditechnologies.com. That's an event we'll be seeing you in Washington, D.C. for. But for now, Matt, hey, you know, gas prices should slow down. We're getting to the end of the summer. By the way, in about 6 weeks, we'll be talking about the rollback to summer gasoline. And again, I think the only cloud on the horizon at this point is hurricane season. So we'll be keeping an eye on the tropics, whether we're on a podcast here or if we're in DC recording podcasts. That's something we'll always be watching. But hey, for now, everyone, been great to talk with you, Matt.
Yes, sir. I'm looking forward to it.
Be here next time, right?
Absolutely. All right. You guys have a good one this week, and we will talk again coming up really soon.
So long.